بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضي الله تعالى عنه وسرد التابعين وعلماء عاملين وآئمة أربع مجتهدين ومقلديهم إلى يوم الدين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Alright, so we'll first start off before we go into it. We're going to begin to discuss Wudu now. And understand this, and I think I said this before, but I can't emphasize this enough because I don't want people to continue to make this error. When you're studying fiqh is the ilm sharia, right? It is the science or the knowledge of the sharia. And terminology plays a part for everything. Everything has its own terminology. When you study medicine, even outside of Islam, when you study medicine has its own terminology. Law has its own terminology, and so on and so forth, So the same exact thing applies. This has been a contribution to mistaken error in the past. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sharif. This has been a contribution to error in the past, was the lack of understanding of terminology or using that terminology out of its place. Now, this terminology that you're using right now is pertaining to the science of fiqh. And you're going to hear a lot of two terms, wajib, and you'll hear wajib or you'll hear fard, right? You're going to hear one of the two. It's either you're going to hear wajib or you're going to hear fard, okay? And both terms is used to mean the same thing, okay? This isn't the Hanafis in their usul, in their foundations of fiqh. They use the terms differently. They use fard and wajib. They use them differently. This isn't a Hanafi fiqh class. But however, the term, you're going to hear the word fard or you're going to hear wajib. All right? You'll hear the word fara'id, which is the plural for the word fard. Okay? You'll hear the word fara'id, which is the plural for the word fard, okay? I don't want you to get lost in terminology because sometimes because it's, a different language, some people may know Arabic already, some people may not know Arabic already. But however, when you're learning, utilizing fiqh, the way I like to teach, I like to give you somewhat of the words that are important to your studies that you need to know in Arabic. Inshallah. So people in the Zoom chat, I'm going to have to flip back and forth. But if you have something you want to contribute to the conversation, you go ahead and put it in the chat. Type it in the chat and I'll look in there, inshallah, as I get time. Those of you on Facebook, you can type in the chat, inshallah. So let's get ready to get started. So before I get started, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa sallallahu alayhi sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, radi Allah ta'ala anhu, wa sarad al-tabi'ina wa ulama amilina wa a'ima arba'i mujtahidin wa muqallidihim ila yawm ad-din wa ba'd. A few things just want to mention before we get into the actual text. Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sidi Kwame Abdul Malik. Wudu is made obligatory in the Quran, right? It's made obligatory in the Quran. In Surah Ma'idah, Surah 5, Ayat 6, okay? If you memorize that ayat, you'll learn about wudu, and of course other acts is mentioned in that ayat. But however, wudu is mentioned in there, the fara'id, the obligations of wudu. So when you're talking about the obligations of wudu, nobody please don't mistake and say, hey, I'm going to make a a fard wudu, meaning I'm only going to do those things as mentioned by what's in the Quran and ignore the way the Prophet ﷺ made wudu. Okay. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ameen, City Nasir. Alright, so don't make that mistake. Wudu, how the Prophet ﷺ did it, is how we are to do it as well. Okay. Now there may be different variations according to people who follow one of the other remaining three schools of fiqh. You may have some different variations. Like for instance, with the Ahnaf, the Hanafis, they have a tendency of when they make wudu, when they wash their head, right, they also wipe the nape of their neck. And there's actually a hadith on that. That's not the way of the school of Amal Ahl Medina, but however, they have their proofs in doing so. And Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, one of the principles of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, one of the beliefs of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is that the four schools of fiqh, they are to pray behind someone that follows a different school than you is absolutely permissible, is permitted. You know, we believe that their paths is one that leads back to the path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But however, you know, whatever fiqh that you follow, that's the fiqh that you adhere to. But there's no problem praying behind someone else that follows another school, and they may, you know, do practices slightly different. As long as it's coming from one of those four schools of fiqh, then it's accepted. If it's coming from the Shia, the Rafida, or anything other than that, you know, and I'm talking about fiqh, I ain't talking about the Aqidah. You know, I think we discussed this in another class. If you have time to view that class, the prayer behind a Ahlul Bidah wa Firqa, you know, it's not acceptable to do so. So when I mention the Shia, I'm talking about the rules according to their understanding of fiqh. Ahl Sunnah, we don't pray behind them, and it's not not just only because of their rules of fiqh, but also because of their belief system, you know, that they have, you know, and so on and so forth. So I just want to make that clear. However, there are some significance and benefits of wudu, but we take the action when you make wudu and you make it according to how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it. You are following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And you're keeping his sunnah alive. And as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in another hadith, he said, "The one who revives my sunnah when the sunnah has died out," right? Because they asked, he said, "Me and my khulafa, my khalifas, will be in Jannah. Will be like this, right? Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Will be like this, you know, in Jannah." And they asked, "Who are your khulafa? Who are your successors?" He said, "The ones who revive my sunnah when it has died." So when you're making you're doing the wudu, each time that you're doing it, each time you teach it, you're keeping the legacy of Islam going. Even though you may consider yourself insignificant, you may not consider yourself knowledgeable, you may not be the most knowledgeable of people, but if you are behaving and practicing in the manner, the way that the Prophet ﷺ taught, then you are keeping Islam, you know, the legacy of Islam, is having a continuation. Now, also when one is making wudu, you are to clear your mind for Salah, right? That's when you're making wudu, you're clearing your mind for Salah. Some people have like an empty Salah, and then, you know, that's also another discussion about khushu', you know, the focus of the prayer, the developing that khushu', that focus, that, you know, I guess that's the best word equivalent in Arabic to English. I mean, some people say humility, but that focus of the salah, right? You develop that khushu', you know, that when you're making a salah, you have this level of humility, and this is why they refer to it as that tabriq I'll look at. I'll answer that question afterwards, inshallah. When you're making your khushu', your humility towards the salat, what happens is that, you know, you're humbling yourself. You know the reality of the prayer. You're fulfilling one of the obligations that Allah Ta'ala has made obligated upon you, right? And if you died at that moment, then you've done an act of obedience, right? You know, with that. Also, you know that this will be the first action that you'll be questioned about, you know, on the Qiyamah, you know. So, you know, these things are very relevant and important, you know. It's important to, you know, your akhirah. Everything that you do is to benefit your afterlife, right? And usually when you see and this is for people, especially the people that suffer from chronic waswas, right? Now, when you see people that suffer from chronic waswas, they can never keep their mind straight. You know, it's always, you know, whispering the shaitanic whispers, you know. You constantly have evil whispers, right? You swaying, you know. Use your wudu, fresh wudu will protect you from this thing. Fresh wudu protects you from, you know, keeping wudu. It protects you from these things. One of the practices of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam before one returns to sleep, you know, to retires for rest at night, is that they should go to rest in wudu. And even you'll also read narrations about if you're in a state of junub, meaning that you're in a state of ritual impurity from having intercourse with your wife or your husband, you know, it's highly encouraged to make ghusl before one goes to rest. But however, if one doesn't do so, they're encouraged to wash their private parts and make wudu and then rest, right? But when you wake up, of course, you got to make ghusl. But before you go to sleep, you know, you should try to go to sleep in a state of wudu. And a lot of times that also affects us, you know. We keep ourselves in a state of wudu, you know, constantly, inshallah. It's important to be in that state, you know. Wudu is important, and you'll see when we start talking about what breaks wudu, you know. So these things have its benefit. So it you know, it helps you with your mind. And when you're performing wudu, a Muslim, you know, they have to, and this is also why Aqidah is important, because Aqidah, Tawheed, is making differentiation between the Creator, Al-Khalaq, and the Makhluqat, and those things that are created, right? You make a differentiation. So, and know, as Imam Dhunnul al-Misri, he said that whatever comes to the mind, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not that, right? So oftentimes you'll hear these references of when you're standing for the salah, you know that you're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning that focus of humility, not image, right? Focus of humility and not image, right? To focus and to make image in your mind about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is disbelief. It takes you outside of Islam, okay? Even when we talk about the ru'ya, and, you know, we've done this, we've discussed this in classes on Islamic belief, Usuluddin. You'll constantly hear me reference it as Usuluddin, the foundations of the deen. We've done classes on that where we talked about the ru'ya. That is one of the rewards that Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'at, we believe, based on the ayahs of the Quran, that we will have the ru'ya of seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a reward, bila kayf, without any type of modality, without giving a description, saying it's in a location or anything, but we accept and embrace and firmly believe that that is something that will happen, bila kayf, without modality, without a how, right? We don't ask how, what it's going to be, what it's going to look like, where, when. You know, we just know that this is what Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, and khalas, that's it. We don't go no further than that, right? This is the belief of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Now, so you're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if a person stands before, you know, their king, you try to prepare yourself. Like for instance, when a person has a court date, he has a parking ticket, let's say a speeding ticket or something of that nature. A lot of people, many people don't. Some people do. Not everybody. Some people is like, yo, look, this is how it is, right? Some people, they'll go if they're going on trial. They usually try to wear a suit and tie, or put on some sort of clothing or attire that's going to appeal to the judge, right? Well, with Salah, Allah Ta'ala is greater than anything, right? So when you're approaching prayer, one of the first things that you want to be is clean, right? And when we go further in our lessons, we'll talk about the conditions of the Salah. And the first condition of Salah is Tahara. And the Tahara, purification, you're purifying your place, right? Your clothing and yourself. You purify yourself by means of istinja. Well, you utilize water, right? You purify yourself by means of istinja, right? Or using water, istijmar, right? Wudu, okay? Ghusl, right? And Taiyamun under exceptions, right? There's cases of Taiyamun where it's accepted, under exception. So therefore, this you're purifying. You also have to know what's pure, what's impure. And this is why we spent that time to discuss these things, right? However, so when you going and approaching a prayer, you standing before Allah Azza wa Jalla, what is happening, you're going to go in a state of purity and humility. So you're ensuring that your clothing is clean, and you usually want to go in a calm, have yourself collected and well put together, right? Now, and we should be prepared for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a much greater mindset and that's why he said khushu', when you're approaching a prayer. So usually you don't develop khushu' as you get into prayer, right? But what happens is, because when you're making a salah, you're approaching a prayer, the beginning of the prayer is once you do that takbir ihram, where you raise your hands and you say out loud. The prayer starts once you say Allahu Akbar, right? Anything before the prayer is not the prayer, but it's in preparation for the prayer, right? You takbirah, you say Allahu Akbar, right? And you make preparations for the salah in itself. Now, and so the spiritual resolution for the salah, the wudu, it doesn't only just make the body pure, but it also prepares the Muslim for the prayer. And think about it. Even when you die at your janazah, one of the things, what do you do with the body? We wash the body. So a Muslim's mind state has to be pure in all situations. If you think about it, we're not the type of people that should be people that sit around and as constantly in filth. Filth keeps jinns around you, right? They feed off of your food. That's why you say Bismillah before you eat. They can't eat off your food, right? And you try to make sure that you waste no food to give them no food to eat, right? We don't leave anything for that nature. So even your cleanliness should be an attribute of a Muslim. Now, so it prepares you spiritually, right? If you think about it, if every time you'll get ready to approach and make wudu and ghusl or whatever it is in order to make the prayer accepted, think about the death. Also remember that your body will be washed to begin your janazah and your qabr, in the barzakh, right? It's the beginning at that point. Now, of course, you don't have no control over washing. You can't even tell somebody. If somebody missed your limb, you couldn't say, "Hey, you missed my arm. You didn't wash my arm," right? But however, this is the beginning of your affair, of you with that transition from the dunya to the barzakh, in the grave, the life in the grave. Now, and when he washes the dirt from his body, he may also think about washing away sins from his body with the intention of not to repeat the sins. And then the Prophet ﷺ inform us that when a person makes wudu, that when the drips that are dripping off of the skin, the body, for men, the beard, the eyes, whatever the case is, those are some of your sins being forgiven. The minor sins, of course, the lesser the sins, but they're being forgiven. That's a sign of forgiveness, right? And that shows some sign of hope there, right? However, one of the things I want to just to throw that out there, inshallah, we'll be having a class on that and discussing that in the near future, inshallah. But the bigger sins that you are in control of, they require tawbah, right? They require tawbah. So if you're a person that is sinful, you want to do one thing. The first thing is that you want to beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the assistance against the nafs to rid yourself of committing errors, right? Against your errors, especially sins that you're perpetually involved in, right? Because at that point, it's an addiction, right? It's something that you're addicted to doing, right? But however, you slip up, you mess up, you make tawbah, and you still ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you from returning back to that sin. So there's the difference. The perpetual sinner, if he knows he's weak, you seek Allah ta'ala's assistance, right? And as you begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the help, and you humble yourself and you come empty, like an empty cup, be prepared to fill that cup up with the deen, right? And that will help you move forward, moving forward. So anyway, just to move forward. So when one wash your hands, you'll be repenting for the wrong things that you've done with your hands. You wash out your mouth, you're repenting for the things that you've done wrong, are said out of your mouth, and so on and so forth. When one prepares himself for Salah in this way, then he becomes more attentive for the purpose of Salah, so that it brings him closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah ta'ala tells us in the Quran. And just like the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions in the hadith, inshallah, I'll post this later, in the group for you all. Right? I'll try to post hadiths that are relative and beneficial and encouraging. Okay, inshallah, no problem. The Prophet ﷺ and he asked his companions about bathing. If there was a river in front of your door and you bathe in it, would you be clean? Right? They said, yes, ya Rasulullah, no. He said, likewise is the 5 salawat. Each time you pray, it's like bathing, So, don't limit yourself. And one of the things that makes a person suffer with regards to tawbah or delay tawbah in istighfar is that he believes he has time, right? So make your time period from one salat to the next salat that you recollect, the errors that you committed. You got to constantly be on guard. But recollect, don't try not to let one salat pass into the other salat without you making tawbah or istighfar. And try to, reflect even in the evenings or when you have time of quiet time, and maybe just take those moments to reflect and make istighfar for whatever sins that you committed that you remember. All right? Now, and so Uthman ibn Affan, it's been mentioned in the Sahih Muslim that he said the one who makes wudu and makes it in the best way, the sins leaves his body, even the ones that are beneath his nails. Right? So, just wanted to mention that before we go over the fara'id, right? And there's something that I want to mention with regards to the fara'id. Wudu has ahkam as well. It has a hukm. Well, ahkam is the plural for hukm. Hukm is the judgment. Ahkam is judgments. Okay? Now, there's only one way to make wudu. In the next class, inshallah, I will, hopefully I have a better setup. If not, I'll make a video and post it. But how to make wudu, right? I'll have it recorded. How to make wudu. Some people may be making wudu. Some people aren't making wudu properly. Like, for instance, some people, not everyone, but when they make wudu, it mentions washing their hands up to the elbow. Some people wash their hands, right? Then after that, they go to the next part. But when they come washing the hands up to the elbow, some people understand it as the wrist to the elbow, right? We don't understand it as such. We understand it that it is the entire hand up to the elbow, right? And then you do what is known as takhleel, in between, right? The thorough wiping in between the fingers, right? It's different from the initial washing of the hands. The initial washing of the hands will fall under the category of sunnah. If you're confused, don't worry. It'll become clear by next class, right? So, like I said, I'll make a demonstration for wudu. So anyway, so there's 7 fara'id. Okay, if you're writing notes, I want you to make this point. If any of these things that I mentioned, that I'm about to mention, these 7 obligations, if any of them have been missed, and you've completed your wudu, but you've missed one of these 7, and you remember it before you approach the prayer, you have to go back and make a fresh wudu again. Okay? You have to go back and make a fresh wudu. However, if you miss any of these 7 obligations, okay? If you're missing any of these 7 obligations, and you went and you made the salah, you made the prayer is invalid. You have to make wudu again, and you have to pray that prayer over. You understand? This is the judgments for the obligations of wudu. So one more time. If you made wudu and you miss any of these 7 obligations of prayer, any of these 7 obligations of wudu, and you left the wudu area, and before you make takbir ihram, you remembered that you missed one of these 7 particularly, okay? You have to go back and you have to make a fresh wudu, make a brand new wudu. If you remembered and you made that wudu and you left out some of the obligations of wudu, and you make that takbir into the prayer and you pray the entire prayer, then you salam out, that wudu, that prayer is invalid and you must go back and pray again. All right? If you make this wudu, right, which I didn't say the third thing, if you make this wudu and you start the prayer, you takbir ihram, Allahu Akbar, right? And you begin the prayer and you remember in the middle of the prayer, you salam, and you don't really have, but you salam, the adab is you salam, and you walk off and you go back and you remake that wudu and you start that prayer again. Okay? Because the prayer is batil. It's invalid, it's no good. Okay? It invalidates the prayer. So you miss any of these 7. So briefly, and then we'll conclude, class will be finished for tonight, inshallah. The first obligation of wudu is niyat, intentions. Intentions. The intentions can be made 1 or 2 ways. Within the school of Ahl Medina, we're specific. So if you're making wudu in order to read the Quran, then that wudu would not be valid for dhuhr, let's say, if you're reading before dhuhr. Okay? Because your niyyah, your intention was you made wudu in order to read the Quran. Dhuhr comes in, you hear the adhan for dhuhr, it comes in, or you know it's nearing the time of dhuhr, you go and you make wudu with the intentions to either 1 or two ways. One, you can say, the intention is to make wudu for Salatul Dhuhr, right? Or you can make the intention to make wudu for all your acts of ibadah, your obligations, all acts of ibadah, right? Or you can be specific and say, I'm making wudu for dhuhr. Which means when the asr come, you make wudu for asr. Right? And there's nothing wrong with making a fresh wudu. Right? The intention can be made with words out loud or silent, meaning moving the lips, and there's no volume to your words, meaning only you can hear that, right? Or you also have to intend it in the heart. So you either out loud. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to make making wudu for salatul dhuhr. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can be, make this wudu for salatul dhuhr. Or you can, right? The intention has to be there. And this has to be done. If one forgot, it has to be done before one begins to wash their face. Okay? It should be done at the onset, to be honest with you. But at minimum, let's say you forgot. Right? Not saying that you make your intention and start before by the time you wash your face. No, you should be done at the onset. But if one forgets, and before he gets to the face, if not, you have to start the beginning of wudu. You missed the first obligation of wudu. The second is washing the entire face. Now, what's considered face? And this for some women, I don't know how many women are aware of this, but what is to be washed is the same thing that will be considered the face that's permitted to be out when you make salah. All right. Once again, what's considered the face is what is permitted to be out when one washes, one prays, and I'm talking about a woman particularly. Right? And why am I mentioning this? Because the ears cannot be exposed. Right? And the chin should not be exposed. Should not, it should start here. Or I got a beard, but right at the tip of the chin. That's where your kimar should come. Right? It should cover this much round and have where your chin. Right? That's the face for men and women. Right, but however, if someone, and this is the same thing that has to be covered, whether in the prayer, outside the prayer, right? Now, this is another discussion, but this doesn't have nothing to do with the prayer. But what you have is what is called satr al-wajh, which literally translates to covering the face, but however, is covering the entire body, right? And in terminology, there's a thing called niqab within the Malikis, and there's niqab for men. There's also niqab for men, which is sunnah, right? Which is an act of sunnah, and then you have niqab for women, which is considered makruh, all right? And what is that? A niqab is something that covers half the face, okay? Now, for women, the covering the entire thing, So don't get fooled by the word semantics where people are like, oh, you don't have to cover your face if you're Maliki and something. No, you do. Outside of the prayer around men, that's non-mahram. You have to cover the entire body around men, right? Oh, wait. I'm not just going to limit it to men because a lot of our sisters have this misunderstanding. You cannot uncover yourself around non-Muslim women either, all right? You're not supposed to uncover yourself around non-Muslim women. All right, you look at the ayat in the Quran. It explains to you. All right, so it's not just women generally you can uncover yourself in front of. It's non-Muslim women as well. Now, but that's a whole nother discussion. But for my students, you should be aware of this, inshallah. Okay, so washing the face is from where the hairline begins around to the chin. So this is all considered face. Also, make sure that you get the eyelids when you make wudu. The crevices in the eyelids, Make sure you get them crusty, little eye boogers in the morning. Make sure when you make wudu, you make sure that you get all of this, the eyes as well, right? You know, all the crevices, you know, the nose, right? The crevices. Make sure everything gets wet, right? For men with beards, this is another discussion, but this men with beards such as myself or bigger, right? You are to wipe the beard, right? Men with light beards, they are to do takhleel, right? Scrub it, right? Men with thick beards, they're to wipe over it. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, at least it's recorded for you. The wipe over it, right? If it's a light beard, then he is to rub it, okay? Wiping the entire head. Oh, wait. If you have a person that have a receding hairline, a lot of us men, you know, start hitting our 20s, you know. Most of us rock baldies, but, you know, our late 20s, you know, you start losing hair, right? Or you pretty hair brothers, you know, thin hair cats, you're going to start going bald after a while, right? But however, if your hair recedes, no matter if your hair start back here, that hairline is where a normal hairline would start, okay? So if it's a receding hairline. The next thing, number 4, is, I said number 4. That was number 2. So number 3 is washing the hands to the elbow, right? And as I mentioned before, you would have the water. You know, usually you would, if you're pouring, you're supposed to use like a pitcher, right? Use a pitcher. You pour the water into your hand and you let it run down, right? And you let it run down. While you're letting it run down, you're wiping the entire hand, right? And what's interesting is when we go over Taiyamun, right? For a lot of people that like to just do the wrist to the elbow, you know, the ayat actually says yad ila marafiqain, the hand, the yad ila marafiqain, the hand to the elbow, right? Now, only khilaf, the only discussion you'll have is, does the elbow start here? All right, you see where my finger's at, or does it go here? That's the only thing you're gonna have. So you wash the the hands to the elbow, right? And so what I was mentioning was Taiyamun. This is how you do Taiyamun as well. You know, you wash from the inside hand to the outside to the elbow, right? And you do wudu in the same manner when you're doing the rubbing. Now, the wrist to the elbow. Now, Imam Ashmawiya, he mentions in his book that this is an obligation. He includes it as an obligation, but he calls it an obligation outside the obligations. Okay? And it's mentioned in the higher books of fiqh. So do not, if you're making wudu, like I said, I'm going to go over it next week, but you have to make sure that you wash in between the fingers as well. When you're doing the hands to the elbow, all right? The beard, it's all dependent on how thick the beard is. A light beard, you make sure that you do takhleel. That's what it's called, like a scrubbing, all right? And if you have a thicker beard, then you wipe, right, over it, okay? Now, number 4, the wiping of the entire head, all right? And this is why it's emphasized, the entire head, all right? You wipe the entire head. How do you wipe the head? Is basically you get the water, you would take the water and you bring it such and you run it back, okay? Run it to the back. That's what's obligatory, okay? Washing, bring it back. This is the obligatory act of washing the head, okay? Like I said, next class I will demonstrate how to do the wudu. So you wash to the back. Now you take the water, to the back. There's other rulings in other schools about what portion, how much of the hair or the head is obligated to wipe, but that's not really our concern, right? Sometimes I mention that in there just for right? Almost like, what do you call it, or fun facts or FYI type thing, you know, so that you're familiar. If you see somebody doing something, you know, that like that, and you be like, yo, wait a minute. So, you know, because the thing that a student of knowledge, you know, wants to be cautious of is making objection, right? Make an objection to something that may be permitted in the Sharia. Okay, so anyway, the fifth thing is washing the feet up to the ankles, and you wash the foot up to the ankle bone, right? And those people who like to wipe over cotton socks, I see people, they be wiping over cotton socks, and them joints be the no vision ankle socks and things of that nature. Not that that is permitted to wipe over cotton socks, but I mean, they ain't even got that much right. So, you know, the foot goes up to the ankle. Okay. Number 6 is the rubbing. Each limb has to be rubbed. Okay. You can't. It's not enough for you to dunk your forearm in and pull it out, like, you know, just dunk it, or just jump in a pool of water and make your intention to be, you know, purified. That's not enough. You have to do rubbing. And number 7 is continuity. Now, if you want to put a little esoteric, or, you know, a little star or whatever, you know, for this, with regards to continuity is judged by the last limb you washed. Example given. The last limb you washed and dryness entering up on it. Let's say, for instance, you were waiting for an important call. You know, this call is extremely important. And you have your phone near you in your wudu area, sink, you know, wherever you make wudu at. And you're washing, right? You're making wudu. And you finish washing your face. And the phone rings. Okay? And you were waiting for this call, and you only picked up the phone to ask them to hold on, please. And when you come back from washing your face, you move on to the next part of your wudu. Your face hasn't dried. That's still considered continuity. If you answer the phone and you begin to talk on the phone and your face dries, then the wudu is batil. You have to start over from the beginning. Is that kind of clear? So if if your face dries, you know, or the last limb dries, you break continuity. If the limb is not dry, if the limb is still wet, then you're good. Okay? So with that ends the section on the fara'id of wudu. If there's any questions or comments for my Facebook users or those in the Telegram group, you put them in either one of the groups. But make sure you put it on the thread of the video, the actual video, because I might not see it, or I want to take it out of context. But I'm gonna, if I can remember, inshallah, and if I forget, somebody remind me. Just a little gentle reminder. Hey, don't forget about the hadith. You told us about this. You said you was gonna post. Don't forget about this. Or if I said there was something I wanted to share with you all, then inshallah, let's make sure that I do that. Inshallah, I try to be a man of my word. So inshallah, we'll stop there. Inshallah, next class, like I said, we'll go over the actual wudu. The actual behavior of the wudu, how to do the actual wudu, and then we'll talk about the sunnah of wudu. So you're going to have a little pop quiz next week, so you might want to review this. I'm going to ask you about the hukm of wudu, right? I may even go back and ask you some things pertaining to the class before this on istinja and istijmar. Everything will be, just related to those two, inshallah. I might have a little pop quiz. I don't know if I'm going to type it up and just put it in there for you to, to answer and, submit the answers. Or I might just ask you, right on the live like we've done in the past, inshallah. I've done that in the past as well. So, inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala reward everyone. Bless you all, and I'm truly grateful and appreciative for you all taking your time out to allowing, firstly, give praise and credit to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, but, you all being, humble enough and allowing me to teach you all to get some of this benefit and this blessing, inshallah. So, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless everyone. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.